everyone! Flags can often be controversial, and many of these controversial flags have been confined to history. But there are still plenty of contentious flags out there today, and some of these are used by countries. In this video, we're going to show you what we believe are the 10 most controversial national flags currently being used. Before we begin, be sure to hit the subscribe button because we have tons of flag-related content already on this channel, and we have lots more to come in the future. So without any further ado, here are the flags. Coming in at number 10, we have the national flag of Mozambique. The flag was adopted in 1983 and is based off the flag of the Mozambican Liberation Front, which is the dominant party of Mozambique. After the country gained independence from Portugal, this party ruled under a one-party system, but there was a bloody civil war which took place that opposed this. The party set up a Marxist-Leninist state, and some of the flag's elements reflect this. The yellow star on red is clearly a communist symbol. We can also see a hoe and an AK-47 which are crossed over. This is clearly a nod to the hammer and sickle design which was used on the flag of the Soviet Union. In 1999 and later in 2005, attempts were made to change the flag, but both ended in failure. The Mozambican National Resistance, which is the main opposition party, was the main driving force for a new flag. As well as being based off the flag of their rival party, they pointed out that the communist yellow star should be removed because Mozambique moved away from the Marxist-Leninist system after the collapse of the Soviet Union in the early 1990s. They also argued that the AK-47 should be removed because the country is trying to move on from the civil war that took place between 1977 and 1992, and the weapon on the flag is a reminder of that awful time. The flag of Mozambique is the only national flag that has a modern firearm, though there are a few other countries which have traditional firearms such as cannons and muskets. Flag design competitions took place in 1999 and 2005 to choose a new flag, but the ruling party ultimately decided to keep the current one. In our opinion, this is a bad flag for all the symbolic reasons already mentioned, but it's also a bad design. The flag has 3 charges sitting on top of one another. The hoe and AK-47 are superimposed on an open book, which in turn is superimposed on the yellow star. This is really terrible flag design and should never be used on any flag, let alone the flag of a sovereign nation. At number 9, we have the flag of Myanmar. The flag was adopted in 2010. The design is based on a previous flag. This was the flag of the state of Burma, which was a puppet state of Japan during World War II. Myanmar was previously known as Burma, and Burma was part of the British Empire. Japan invaded Burma during the war, but promised to grant independence to the country at some future point. Of course, Japan and their partners lost the war, but Burma did end up gaining independence after the British relinquished its control over the country. So why did they choose a flag that was based off this one? It's probably because this flag symbolized the idea of independence. The Japanese occupation didn't work out well, and a number of atrocities were committed by the Japanese in Burma, but for some, the flag represents sovereignty. The current flag removed the peacock and replaced it with a white star. The official symbolism of the flag's elements is pretty generic and not controversial. However, because it was based on the flag of the Japanese puppet state, many feel it's not appropriate. In 2019, all the major political parties put forward new flag proposals. Given the fact all of them seem to be in agreement about changing the flag, we might see a new flag pretty soon. Regarding the flag's design, some people have said it looks more like an African flag than that of a country in East Asia. While many African countries use the same colors, they don't have a monopoly on these colors, and we don't have a problem with Myanmar using the so-called Pan-African colors. As it turns out, the flag most closely resembles a non-African country. Here is the flag of Lithuania, which of course is located in Eastern Europe. Their flag has the same 3 stripes as Myanmar's flag. So from a design perspective, we have an issue with the resemblance to Lithuania's flag, and perhaps it also reminds people of some African flags, but we reject any suggestion that countries outside of Africa should refrain from using the Pan-African colors on their flag. Next, we have the flag of Kyrgyzstan. The flag was adopted in 1992, shortly after the breakup of the Soviet Union, which Kyrgyzstan was a part of. Officially, the red stands for bravery and valor and alludes to a man called Manas, who is considered the national hero of the country and is said to have raised a red pennant during his exploits. The 40 rays of the sun design represent the 40 tribes Manas is said to have united to fight the Mongols. The X shape at the center is a stylized depiction of the roof of traditional tents used by the people of Kyrgyzstan. So this all looks like great symbolism, right? Well, not quite. While Manus is considered a hero by many, this is not the opinion of everybody. The country is ethnically diverse, and some of these groups were conquered by Manus, such as the Uzbeks, and they make up over 14% of the population today. To them and other minority groups, the flag symbolizes the conquering of their people. The red color is an issue for another reason. For many, it's a reminder of the old Soviet Union, which Kyrgyzstan was a part of. This was the flag when it was part of the Soviet Union, which of course was based off the flag of the Soviet Union itself. Looking at the current flag, we can definitely see the argument that it looks too much like the old Soviet flags. And it's not just the dominant red field. The fact the charge is colored yellow makes the flag look even more like those used by the Soviets. From a design perspective, we're not fans of the dominant red color, and we think the tent and sunray design is a bit too detailed for flag use. A commission was set up a number of years ago to look into the flag, and they outlined all the issues we just raised. For now, the current flag remains, but the debate will continue, and perhaps someday the flag will change. Before we move on, it's worth mentioning that some people have jokingly referred to the flag as the Xbox flag, due to the fact the symbol at the center resembles the Xbox logo. Of all the issues with the flag, this is probably the least controversial, and it's definitely the funniest. Coming in at number 7, we have the flag of Bosnia and Herzegovina. Like Kyrgyzstan, Bosnia and Herzegovina is ethnically diverse. There are 3 main groups. Those are the Bosniaks, Serbs, and Croats. The country gained independence after the breakup of Yugoslavia. A war then took place which was fought among these groups. The war ended in 1995, but not surprisingly, a huge amount of anger and resentment remained, and it's no surprise the country couldn't agree when it came to choosing a national flag. So what ended up happening was that a new flag was imposed on the country by the United Nations High Representative. The flag has a blue field on top of which is a yellow triangle, and along the hypotenuse are 7 full 5-pointed stars and 2 half stars top and bottom. The triangle represents the triangular shape of the country, as well as the 3 main ethnic groups. The stars are meant to represent infinity as well as Europe. And speaking of Europe, the flag has many similarities with the European Union flag. And this similarity adds to the whole notion that this is a flag imposed on the country rather than the people choosing their own flag. Many people see it as a foreign flag, and there is little love for the national flag in the country. Rather than fly the flag with pride, the different groups prefer to fly other flags which they believe represent them better than the national flag. While we understand the effort to make a flag that tries to be inclusive and steer away from ethnic controversies, the fact the flag came from outside is a huge problem. And the similarity with the EU flag is most unfortunate and kind of strange given the fact that Bosnia and Herzegovina isn't even a member of the EU. In our opinion, we like the triangle and its symbolism. As for the stars, that's a totally different story. We very much dislike the 2 half stars. We think it's poor flag design and doesn't look very good on the flag. And the infinity symbolism it's supposed to represent is vague and generic. Right now, there isn't a huge push to create a new flag. Perhaps the people have accepted that the 3 main groups will never come to an agreement about a new design, and the citizens of the country will continue to shrug apathetically at their national flag. Next up is Cyprus. Cyprus is divided into a northern and southern region. The north is populated mostly by Turkish Cypriots, and the south by Greek Cypriots. So like our previous countries, Cyprus is divided ethnically, and once more this is the root cause of the flag controversy. Cyprus gained independence from Britain in 1960, and therefore a new flag was needed. It was decided to create a neutral flag that didn't have the color blue or a cross, which would have represented Greece and Greek Cypriots. And also, it wouldn't have red or a crescent, which would have represented Turkey and Turkish Cypriots. The result was this uninspiring flag design, which we think took the neutrality thing a little too far. The dominant white field represents peace, as do the olive branches. The flag is completed by an outline of the island of Cyprus. It has an orange copper color, which represents the copper ore deposits found on the island. Like the Bosnian flag, it was an extremely difficult task to come up with a flag to please everyone, and a design people could rally around and be proud of. But at least with the Bosnian flag, it's actually a fairly good design overall. With Cyprus, it's kind of a mess. Bosnia and Herzegovina simplified the map outline to a triangle, which was a very good design decision. Cyprus went all in on a more detailed outline, which makes the flag difficult to draw accurately. Unless you can simplify your country's shape to straight lines or other simple regular shapes, then you shouldn't use them for flags. The olive branches are too detailed in our opinion and just add to the complicated design. We're also not fans of the green and orange color shades, and to top it all off, we think the white field is too dominant. The result is another flag not embraced by the people, though it's unlikely a new flag with a better design would prove to be more successful. Northern Cyprus has its own Turkish-inspired flag, which they use instead of the national flag, and many Greek Cypriots prefer using the Greek flag. Coming in at number 5, we have the flag of Angola. The flag was adopted in 1975 when it gained independence from Portugal. It's based off the flag of Popular Movement for the Liberation of Angola, the political group which fought for the country's independence. The MPLA set up a communist-style government which was bitterly opposed by others, and a civil war took place. Does all this sound familiar? What happened in Angola was almost exactly the same as what happened in Mozambique, which we looked at earlier. Like Mozambique, the Angolan flag features obvious communist symbolism inspired by the Soviet Union. We have the yellow star on red, and we have another symbol that resembles the hammer and sickle. Angola decided to go with a gear and machete design, the overall shape of which is very similar to the hammer and sickle. In the early 1990s, Angola had to abandon its Marxist-Leninist style system just like Mozambique, when the Soviet Union fell apart. And therefore, once more, the symbolism is outdated. And continuing on the parallel histories of these two countries, efforts have been made to come up with a new flag, but as of now, the old Soviet-style flag remains. From a pure design perspective, this one is better than Mozambique's superimposed catastrophe, though the gear and machete design are a little too detailed for our liking. We also like the bicolor combination of red and black, even though their contrast is not the best. But as far as symbolism goes, this one is really bad because the aforementioned gear and machete symbol is the main feature of the flag and represents a system that was a complete failure that resulted in misery and bloody death for millions of people in the former Soviet Union and beyond. Once you see it, it's impossible not to see the similarity of the symbols. Next up is the flag of Venezuela. This is the state flag which features the country's coat of arms in the canton. And here is the civil flag, which is more commonly used. The current flag was adopted in 2006 by then-President Hugo Chávez. It replaced the previous flag, which was very similar, but had one key difference. The previous flag had 7 stars, and the new one has an extra star, bringing the total to 8. The reason the old flag had 7 stars was because 7 provinces signed a Declaration of Independence from the Spanish Empire to create the country in 1811. Later, the province of Guyana was added, and in 1817, a flag was created that had 8 stars, at the behest of political and military leader Simon Bolivar, who wanted to recognize the addition of the new province. The number of provinces increased throughout the years, usually as a result of splitting up former provinces, and today Venezuela has 21 provinces. The flag has changed many times over the years, and the number of stars was reduced back down to 7. We don't know exactly why, but perhaps the thought was that the 7 original provinces needed to be given greater recognition than the additional Guyana province. Chávez was a big fan of Bolivar, and he wanted to bring back the 8th star in recognition of the wishes of his hero. What makes the flag controversial isn't the recognition of the province of Guyana, or indeed Simon Bolivar, it's Hugo Chávez. Chávez was president of Venezuela from 2002 until his death in 2013. He was highly controversial and set about a socialist regime which many people opposed. As far as the opposition is concerned, the 8 stars symbolize Chávez rather than the old historical symbolism. In 2013, Nicolas Maduro took over Venezuela and he was a close ally of Chávez, so not surprisingly he was happy to keep the 8-star flag. Opponents of the current socialist regime used the previous flag of 7 stars as part of their protest. We don't know what will happen in Venezuela in the coming years as the country is going through huge political and economic chaos right now. If the socialist government is ousted, then there's a good chance the flag will revert back to 7 stars. We don't have any issues with the actual design of the flag, though one criticism is that it's a little too similar to the flags of Colombia and Ecuador. At number 3, we have the flag of Iraq. The current flag was adopted in 2008. It features the Pan-Arab colors of red, white, black, and green. The design is very similar to previous flags which were used under the Saddam Hussein regime. The three stars on the Saddam flags were closely associated with the dictator, even though the first of these flags was adopted before Saddam took power, so removing them on the current flag was a good decision. The green writing introduced by Saddam in 1991 says Allahu Akbar, or God is the greatest. Initially, after Saddam was removed from power, the national flag, which you can see here, used the stars as well as the writing, though the writing script was changed. So while the current flag is an improvement symbolically by removing the stars associated with Saddam, it's controversial for a couple of reasons. Some argue that the current flag is too similar to the Saddam-era flags, and this similarity casts a shadow of the Saddam regime over the country. And it was Saddam who introduced the script in the first place in 1991. It's believed the script on this flag was Saddam's own handwriting. The writing on the current flag uses Kufic script, which is an ancient Arabic script which originated in Iraq. So while changing the script was a good idea, the fact remains that it was Saddam's idea to have this writing to begin with. The other reason the flag is controversial has to do with the exclusion of the Kurdish minority. Kurds make up about 20% of the population of Iraq, and there was a push to have them represented on the national flag. One proposal added a yellow sun with green rays to represent the Kurdish people. This proposal was rejected, and the sun design wasn't used. So while the Kurds succeeded in having the Saddam stars removed, they are not represented on the current flag, unlike the roughly 70% of the population who are Arabs. As well as having no specific symbolism, the Kurdish people were treated horribly by the Saddam regime, and having the remnants of his regime on the current flag makes it a double whammy for Kurds. The current flag was only meant to be used for 1 year until a final design was agreed upon. However, a new design was not approved, and this flag still remains the national flag today. From a design perspective, we don't agree with the use of writing because flags should be graphical representations. Also, the flag is too similar to a number of other national flags of Arab-majority countries. At number 2 is Belarus. The flag was adopted in 1995, a year after President Alexander Lukashenko came to power. The flag is heavily based off the flag of Belarus while it was part of the Soviet Union. Lukashenko wanted to bring back the Soviet-era design due to his pro-Russian stance. From 1991 to 1995, this was the flag of Belarus. This flag had previously been used for a brief period in 1918, just before Belarus became part of the Soviet Union. Right now, there is huge political turmoil happening in Belarus. Lukashenko is still in power, but there is a huge push to get rid of him. So essentially, the country is divided into those who are pro-Lukashenko and Russia, and those who are anti-Lukashenko, and also oppose the huge influence Russia has on the country. Both groups have their flag, the current national flag of Lukashenko, and the previous flag which is used by his opponents. If the opposition succeeds and gains power, then there's a very strong possibility Belarus will change its national flag back to the white, red, and white triband. But that won't solve the controversy because, of course, this would greatly upset those who support Lukashenko and Russia. From a design point of view, the current flag is a really poor design in our opinion. The ornamental pattern at the hoist side is much too complicated for flag use. There's also a color contrast issue between the red and green. Before we get to number 1, we have some honorable mentions. We have 4 flags and they all have something in common. Here are the flags of Australia, New Zealand, Fiji, and Tuvalu. And of course, what they all have in common is the Union Jack and the Canton. All 4 countries were previously part of the British Empire, hence the use of the Union Jack. Having 1/4 of your national flag taken up by the flag of another country is hardly ideal, and of course, this is very controversial. But like many of the flags we've already looked at, opinion is divided. Many people in these countries like their current flag and want to keep it. There's been moves in all 4 countries to change the flag, but all of these have been unsuccessful. So let's reveal what we believe is the most controversial country flag currently being used. At number 1, we have Israel. It was adopted in 1948 when the State of Israel was formed. Israel was formed a few years after the end of World War II, largely because of the Holocaust and a desire to create a sovereign nation for Jewish people. But what this also meant was huge opposition from Arabs in the region. So the State of Israel is hugely controversial, and so is the flag. The flag was initially designed in 1891 by the Zionist movement. The main goal of the Zionist movement was to create a Jewish state, which of course happened in 1948, and it's not a great surprise that their flag was chosen to be the national flag of Israel. The blue stripes on a white field allude to the Tallit, a traditional prayer shawl used by Jewish people. The symbol at the center is a hexagram and is known as the Star of David, and is also known as the Shield of David. This is a widely recognized symbol of Judaism. So the flag as a whole represents Jewish people. And while the whole idea of Israel was to create a Jewish state, non-Jews make up about 25% of the population. So the national flag doesn't represent 1 in 4 of the population. But the flag doesn't just alienate non-Jews. It's also controversial within Judaism. Ultra-Orthodox Jews reject Zionism and therefore also reject the flag. They believe the state of Israel contradicts the teachings of Judaism, including the idea that the land of Israel will be granted to Jews by God and not by human intervention, and they view the state of Israel as being a human entity rather than an act of God. Ultra-Orthodox Jews make up about 10% of the population of Israel, so adding that to the 25% of non-Jews, the flag doesn't represent about 35% of the people, which is just over 1 in 3 people. From a design point of view, we think this is a great flag. The flag is simple with 2 horizontal blue stripes, in between which is a unique, well-proportioned symbol that's pretty easy to replicate. It's a pity that such a great design comes with huge controversy with its symbolism and lack of inclusion for a significant proportion of the country. So those were the 10 most controversial national flags currently in use. Do you agree with the list? Did we leave out any flags you think should have been included? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section. If you liked this video, then please hit the like button. And remember to check out our other videos and subscribe to the channel because we have lots of great content to come in the future. Thank you for watching, and until next time, bye for now.